The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, before seconding formally this bill, I would like to thank the Prime Minister and colleagues who came up last evening for the two things in Fox Hill. First, the lecture on the history of Fox Hill on Wednesday evening at the Mount Carey Baptist Union Baptist Church, which gave a history on Fox Hill and its contribution to the development of the Bahamas, but it gave the people of Fox Hill a particular sense of pride for that evening to focus so much on Fox Hill and the fact that we had so many of the leaders of our country there, the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Tourism, the Ambassador for CARICOM, and the party whip, the Member of Parliament for Fort Charlotte, all came up, and I appreciate the support that evening. And then the next evening for the renaming of the street after Frank Edgecombe, who used to be the Member of Parliament from 1977 to 1987. And the family was quite pleased by that as well. Now, much was made, Mr. Speaker, in some quarters of the fact that the name Edgecombe was not spelled properly on the sign. But let me say it this way. That was the only sign, and it was the ceremonial sign. That sign is not the sign that's actually up on the roads. All the signs were actually properly spelled, except the one that they chose for the ceremony they didn't check. Anyway, that's stuff for the history books. The fact is the family was very pleased at it. Mr. Edgecombe himself was grateful to the country for the support shown. I'm glad that people showed up to support the renaming of the street. And the Ministry of Works, in fact, immediately corrected the sign, and the sign was meant to be a gift to the family for the occasion. So our heart, as the member says, is in the right place. So thank you very much. And so it was a great 2 evenings. And of course, tomorrow is the climax of events in Fox Hill. So everybody from Baytown, who in the old days would come up, Dr. Cleveland Enia said in the old days they'd spend a week up in Fox Hill. Tomorrow night is the last day of the week. So, yeah, the member says he's going to come up next for the whole week, for the week. So Fox Hill Day is tomorrow, and the Prime Minister comes again starting at St. Paul's Baptist Church. And, you know, again, people are invited to come up. It's quite an interesting thing to see. So I thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to support this bill and to second the bill because it is, as colleagues have said here, part of a package, part of a strategy toward helping toward fighting crime in the Bahamas. We're not going to pretend, like the last group that ran the country, that this is the solution to crime. But what we know is that you make an incremental approach and you believe that you'll chip away at it step by step. And crime has become insidious in small ways and in large ways. I just talked about the festival. And when I was in the Member of Parliament's constituency over the weekend, the Member of Parliament who's moving the motion, his constituency over the weekend, I sort of breathed a sigh of relief because the events in Fox Hill had gone so smoothly over the last few days without incident. Only to come back, Mr. Speaker, to find out that the events on Saturday evening, when the police band came up to Fox Hill, had to be cut short because the Urban Renewal Band, who came up to play in Fox Hill, as they were getting on the bus, 2 youngsters decided to throw rocks and bottles at the bus, hit 3 kids, 3 of the people in the band with the rocks. They were hurt. 1 had to be taken to hospital. Now, why would you think, in this day and age and time, people were doing that? For what? You're in an atmosphere where you're having fun. Your people in the community complain there's nothing to be done in the community, so you create good family entertainment for them, and people decide to ruin an evening for people. And this is how insidious this problem has become. Now, I'm told that the police are on top of this. They believe they've identified who the people are, and they're going to try and track and find out who they are. But I want to really extend an apology to the band, to the parents of the children who were hurt during that incident, and to say that that is not typical of the behavior of the people of Fox Hill, and we deplore it, and we do not identify with that kind of behavior. It is wrong. It should not have happened, and I believe that people must be brought to justice over this and understand that they got a role in protecting the community that they have, not destroying what is there. And what adds insult to injury is, in just speaking to the police about this, they tell me that the parents of the children, because some of them may be Haitian nationals, are afraid to come and cooperate with the police because they believe they're going to be interdicted by immigration. So you've got that dimension to this issue that arises in the country. Anyway, unfortunate incident, but just another example of how insidious this problem is, and we have to fight it, and we have to fight it every step of the way. And Mr. Speaker, I want to join colleagues who've indicated that we can't help but notice that the front bench on the other side is empty. And we have to ask ourselves, why are they not here in this important debate to make a contribution toward the development of public policy? The Supreme Court has this axiom, and I've said it before. Hear the other side. That's the responsibility. When you bring something before a judge of the Supreme Court, he hears the side of the Crown, and then he hears the side of the defense. And then there's a judgment which takes place. Same thing in the House of Assembly. You have the side of the government, you have the side of the opposition. And the people of the country expect to hear the government side, and then they want to hear what the opposition has to say. But they can't hear what the opposition has to say if they abdicate their responsibilities and absent themselves from the chamber. And that's what they've done today. They've let the Bahamian people down by absenting themselves from the chamber. And they have no excuse for it. The manufactured crisis that they tried to engender last week, I'm afraid, doesn't cut the mustard. You know, the whole thing was designed to create that picture of when Milo Butler and Arthur Hanna were lifted out of the House in 1965. That's what they were trying to do. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the Member of Parliament for Montague trying to put himself, that must be the bravest thing he's done ever in his life. You know, to try and put himself in the same frame as Milo Butler and Arthur Hanna. Are you kidding me? They must be living in a parallel universe. You see, when Milo Butler and Arthur Hanna were lifted downstairs, the straw vendors from across the road came running here and said they're trying to kill Milo Butler. When that crew went downstairs, all they had was the press and flashing lights. And six fellows across the road with they were demonstrating about freedom of information. They weren't even here to support them. So no troops. When you come to Parliament, bring your troops. You can't come troopless. You know, you're supposed to be bringing the crowds back. You know, when piddling through the mace out of the window in 1965, Mr. Speaker, he had hundreds, thousands outside. They even had to bring the police. You know, but he threw the mace and the people were led off. But this man, no troops, not one single one, not a man jack. As Pindling used to say, look left and look right. And he didn't see no troops nowhere. Nowhere. But I understand, Mr. Speaker. I understand what this is all about. Prime Minister, I saw a newspaper. Where's the headline? No, this one. I want to show the public. Mr. Speaker, that's what this is about. That's what this is about. A woman for prime minister. You see, there's someone nipping at his heels. Someone nipping at his heels, Mr. Speaker. And this is all demonstrating to try and tell the unthinking F&M base that I am man. I am the prime minister in waiting, and you must support me. But you know, of course, there's that. But we also know that another one greeted us. You know, I digress. I jumped out of my car in the just in front of the Freeport airport, and I saw all these pre-national movement, I won't call their names, sitting out front. I wondered what they were doing. You know, unusual gathering. I said, well, you're all having convention out here. Because, you know, I could join you, you know, since I ain't got nothing to do here in Grand Bahama this afternoon. No, they said no, and we had a nice conversation, so on and so forth. I later found out, I thought, you know, because the gathering was so eminent, I presumed that they were there to meet the leader of the opposition. Well, you know, so it reminded me, I'll answer it this way. I'm sitting in St. Agnes Church. The protocol people came up to me and said, the leader of the opposition will be sitting next to you. Do you mind? And I said, well, I know the Member of Parliament for Killarney long time, good friends, went to school together, so on and so forth, not a problem. Until I looked around, and who should arrive? No. One greater than she. and when he sat down on the side, I said, but you told me that you were out of this business. You know, remember I reported that when we were in St. Anselm's Church, he said he was out of the business? And what do you see this morning, Mr. Speaker? What do you see this morning? Big headline this morning. Big headline this morning. Blast the PLP. So who do we say is back now? So we know what the issue is. The issue is to try and make sure that the base knows that Ingram his era is past, and that the member for Long Island doesn't have a chance, because I am standing up for the base. And so, in that whole process, the country now has to suffer, because he is trying to demonstrate that point. So now we have all those empty seats there. Empty seats. And I think that that is a real shame. It has actually let down the country. The country wants its members of Parliament to be in Parliament to make the case for or against a particular resolution. And now, Mr. Speaker, some amazing things are going around. I saw where we are being accused. We are now being accused from the real leader of the opposition of breaching agreements. Can you imagine this man opening his mouth about breaching agreements? Breaching agreements? Well, the people in Mayaguana could tell you about breaching agreements. They could tell you about that. Right? Breaching agreements. The man who was trying to build a straw market there when we left office, they could tell you about breaching agreements if you want to know about breaching agreements. And now, the Bahamas government, what are we engaged in? We say we're not going to pay 1 red cent out of that treasury more than we're supposed to pay. And don't come telling us that building 2 miles of road costs $100 million. Cannot fly. Cannot fly. This member of Parliament has a responsibility to check the bills and make sure those bills are correct. Not a penny more than you're supposed to get. And it ain't got nothing about breaching no agreement. You know, so I wish the many-headed dragon would crawl back under his rock. That's what I wish he would do. Crawl back under the rock and disappear. This is not your time. The era is finished. Your own leader said your era is finished. So go back in the past, be quiet, and stay out of big people's business. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, what do you think this is? What do you think this is? Gee. You know, the same fellow who sold BTC, $210 million.
Give it away.
How much? It was 148? Yeah, 148. We couldn't figure out what,
He gave them $39 million.
Yeah, no, I understand, but the price was supposed to be 210, and then when you net out this and net out that, it turns out 148 million. And we got a phone company that doesn't work. Doesn't work today. Just gave it away. Gave away the national patrimony. And you got the nerve to open up your mouth this morning? Go sit down. Go sit down. It makes you sick. Makes you sick. When is enough, Mr. Speaker? When is time up? And then intervening about, he apologizes. Apologize for what? Apologize for what? Our national hero, the first of them, Clarence Bain, said he decried weak-kneed, apologetic Negroes.
Yes.
Decried them.
That's it.
So the last thing we need is an apology because the Bahamas government is doing the work which it must do to protect the public good. That's all this is about. Has nothing to do with breaching any agreements. I think it's very important that we get that point across to people. Nothing about breaching agreements. This is all about protecting the public trust, the public purse, and the public revenue. That is what this is about. Nothing more, nothing less. So, justice is something which all of us want. We want it for the good, we want it for the bad. It must be done, it must be seen to be done. And what we want to do is, step by step, chip away at the things which are eating away, eroding the good and the goodwill in our society. We hope that providing additional number of judges will enable the courts to process trials which come before them in a more expeditious manner, and that those people who appear before the courts will know that they have judges of good deportment and caliber who will be able to dispense justice in a fair manner. And this is all the Progressive Liberal Party is pledged to do. It is pledged to help people of all means, from every level of society. But it comes out of the bowels of the people of the country. And we stand with them. We know, for example, Mr. Speaker, how this economy has, the recession which has taken place since 2008 has sort of eaten into the confidence and the fabric of the lives of our people. And every member of Parliament, I assure you, works with commitment, dedication, their full spirit in trying to see what we can do to uphold the public good during this very, very tough time. Monday mornings is the morning when I spend with my constituents in my constituency office. And I could tell you of the 14 or 15 people that I saw this morning, every single one of them is unemployed. Every single one of them requires work, and it is just a difficult time. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, you run out of things to say. But what I say is this. My responsibility is not to make them feel bad about themselves, not to let them feel that this is any fault of theirs. And wherever the resources of the government are available, to make sure that those resources are mobilized to help support them during the difficult time. Whether it is the small jobs that are available in the government service, whether it's calling up our friends in the private sector and saying that you have to stretch an additional dollar to give someone a particular job, it is important for heads of households to have work, and we are all working diligently to make sure they get work. And I don't want our supporters, I don't want them losing heart. I don't want them sitting down saying the government isn't paying attention to this. Our every single hour, minute of the day is spent trying to lick this problem. And And what is particularly distressing, you know, people think my objections to the former Prime Minister have become idiosyncratic. But what I would say is this: my objections are so strong because I believe he is the one who is responsible for this mess that we found ourselves in. Created the mess, and now comes trying to stir up the pot again. The fact is, we have to straighten out the mess. The Treasury is particularly stressed, trying to find revenue. It's trying it's like a mother at home trying to stretch her pennies. That's what the public treasury is at now. There's no endless pot of money which is around. And all of us are trying to find, how are we going to fix this problem? You know, you've got the Minister of Trade who's out around the world trying to shop around to say, how are we going to get some fresh new money into this place? You've got a young and dynamic Minister of Investments whose every waking hour is spent, how are we going to get some new project approved so that people can be put to work? And it doesn't have to be the giant project. It's a number of small projects all around. And the people of Mayagüana, you know, I talked about that deal, the fact that that deal was canceled. Can you imagine if that thing had gone ahead, where we would have been today? Except just because I canceled it, and then created a deal which left the Bahamian people in a worse position, as far as I'm concerned, than they were before. I mean, gee, you know, we had a joint venture deal. This ends up with a fee simple deal where you give away the land, alienate the land, and you say that that's a better position than the one the PLP negotiated. I mean, it just boggles the mind. And so we must never tire, of the Progressive Liberal Party, of telling this story of what happened in this country between 2007 and 2012. How deal after deal, how project after project was set back. You see, it's amazing to me, sir, that today he could be coming to the defense of a project that he wanted to sink. And the only reason he went running and scurrying to support that project in the last year was because he had nothing else in the pot. And he was coming up against an election, so he had to do something to show the people of the country that he was doing something. But it was a PLP deal. It was organized by us. And we organized it, sir, in such a way that the best interests of the Bahamian people would be served. There's no giveaway there, despite all the things that they tried to sell. And now, all of a sudden, he's the great godfather of the project out at Cable Beach. Well, let me put it this way. The project is going to come into being in December 2014. The project is going to be superintended by the Progressive Liberal Party or the government of the Bahamas, to be sure that it delivers what it's supposed to deliver for the Bahamian people. They say it's supposed to produce 7,000 jobs. That's what we mean for it to produce. You know, and people were talking about, when we said during the campaign that we produced this level of jobs, as if we were plucking this out of thin air. I mean, you just start out with the 7,000, which is supposed to be delivered in 2014. And you see that the minister, the Minister of Labor, just in the past few weeks, did the National Training Agency Bill, which is supposed to ramp up the training so that no one can come fixing their mouths next year talking about work permits for people to be laborers and waitresses in the hotel. You know, we've got a school system that produced people that largely was geared toward an academic education. The question is, what practically can people do? And one of the reasons why we led the Caribbean in the tourism sector is because we realized that tourism is one of the things, for a relatively small investment, that you can turn around in a quick period of time. You can hire masses of people with relatively low skills and ramp them up within 6 months, get them on the job, and pay them a good wage. That has proven to be resilient for this country since the Second World War. And we've become good at it. And we're going to be better at it. So all it's going to do is take constant training, constant support. And the reason I say all of this, Mr. Speaker, is I just don't want us to get wobbly because some many-headed monster crawls out from under the rock and is now trying to make a comeback. We must guard against that. And we must guard the public trust and move forward to make sure that what happens is done for the best of this, so that the best of this country's resources end up in the hands of the people of this country. And as for justice, the justice, of course, applies to all people. Our Supreme Court now has an action. I gave a statement earlier today. An action before it in habeas corpus because some detainees are at the prison. And the courts are going to look at it. That's what happens in our country. You could protest till the cows come home. This country operates by rules and regulations. You could try and bully me as much as you like. Look me straight in the face, and I want everyone to know this. It don't move me one way or the next. Straight ahead. Straight ahead. We have a job to do. We're going to act properly. We're going to treat people humanely. We do not condone violence against detainees, any mistreatment of any kind. The courts will get an opportunity to look at the subject. I've said deportation orders have been signed. If countries want to take them, they are free to take them. But the Bahamas is not up in an ideological fight. And I think Bahamians do not appreciate their country being attacked unfairly. Recently, they made a slanderous comment about the Prime Minister himself. I think we certainly decry that. We remind them that Bahamians go to South Florida. You know, the economy of South Florida is supported by Bahamians. What value is there in trying to destroy the Bahamas? We're good people, and we work with all people, and we are seeking to protect that image. Our country says we're working expeditiously to put this problem behind us. And to me, the answer is as soon as the detainees have actually gone home or gone to countries who are willing to accept them. And that is the position on that. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased you've allowed me the amplitude to canvass all the many things. You know, often I think the House of Assembly is sometimes at a disconnect between where the country is, because the country is discussing one thing and we're busy discussing another. So, in the absence of our friends from the other side, we have the amplitude to spread across all the issues which face us. And I simply want to say, in summary, that the Bahamian people can count on us to stand up for them, both domestically and internationally, to be sure that the Bahamas continues to survive, that our people will prosper, that there's wealth creation in the Bahamas, that we continue to build a good country where there's peace and justice for everyone. Thank you. I so move.